next session, which is will be chaired by nonetheless Major General Dr. J.K.S. Parihar, and Dr. Parihar is a good friend and also very famous ophthalmic surgeon, and is currently practicing as a consultant in Center for Sight. And I have been, because I chair their ethics committee, so I know how popular and how much demand he is, not only by patients but also their DNB and all those students. He is a wonderful guide, and therefore I call him as a wonderful leader as well. Of course, you have proved your leadership in your defense, but you have also proved your leadership after coming into the public sector. So Dr. Parihar, and I will just quickly introduce the legend in as a leadership, Dr. Renu Swaroop. I don't see her, Dr. Renu Swaroop. She was waiting. Madam, aap hain wahan pe?
I can see you, Dr. Gupta. I can hear you very well.
Oh, great. So ye madam ka ye hata dijiye.
Maybe your bus is on. That's why you can't see me.
Yes. So the one lady and one leader which I admire most is Dr. Renu Swaroop, and she is not only great scientist but a great motivator, and she has been the head of BIREC. Those who know BIREC, I think this is Biotechnology Industry Research Assistant Council, BIREC, which is the organization which has funded more than 10,000 of startups in the country, largest startups which the country has funded, and the success rate is also very high. And this concept was started by Dr. Bhan and entirely managed and led by Dr. Renu Swaroop for many years. And there are several startups which have now become a major entrepreneur, and that is what. And then she also worked as the Secretary, Department of Science and Technology. If I start naming her recognition and the awards, I think because of the time constraint, I will just ask you to read, but I will just mention Biospectrum Person of the Year 2012, National Entrepreneurship Award 2017, and the TIE Women Enabler Award 2018, and Shield Memorial Award 2018, NASI and Third World Academy Science and Award in 218, and so on. And I will not name the awards which followed when she became the BIREC chief and the Department of Science and Technology secretary. The best thing is, if you meet her, as I said in the morning, कि मरे हुए में भी जान डाल देते हैं. So if there is any institution or any person who is not functioning and who is not being working, if she visits, I think within 3 months you will see there a revival of the organization. That is the credit of Madam. So I am really privileged to be in this session where you are speaking. Over to Dr. Priya or maybe Dr. Renu Swaroop to say.
Yeah, I request Dr. Swaroop to kindly proceed with your attack. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you very much, General Parihar, and thank you very much, Professor Gupta, for your very, very kind introduction and kind words that you have written here. I would really like to thank Dr. Sareen, Dr. Ramesh Kapil, and of course Professor Gupta and General Parihar for being here. But more importantly, the National Academy of Medical Sciences for having conceived this very wonderful leadership development program. I was very keen to be with you all physically, Professor Gupta, but due to some other constraints, you know, it's Women's Day today, so we do get a little tied up in many activities. So I said, okay, I will join online, and thank you so much for this opportunity to come and speak with you all, to address all of you. What I have missed is the opportunity to come and interact with each of you, to know each of you, which organization you all are from, what it is. And while Dr. Ramesh Kapil did send me some information, I do not have complete information about all the participants of this, but I do know this much, that each of you in yourself already. By the time you have come here, this is a leadership development program where we are looking at leaders who are moving forward. So it's only a conversation. There is nothing new that we can add to what you are doing, but I think it's more of an exchange of ideas. And as we many times say, it's exchange of best practices. So when you get best practices put out, that's really what helps you to move ahead. And the first and foremost principle for any good leader, which is there, and I'm sure you all have been hearing about it, you have been doing it in your own tasks as you are moving on, and also as we move ahead, is a good leader has to be a good listener. You have to be a good listener, you have to learn how to and always be a student, because that's really what you're doing. You're learning as you're moving ahead, and you keep all your eyes, ears, everything open to take on or bring in all the information that you get. You distill it, you analyze it, and then you take decisions or actions depending upon what 360-degree view you have taken, what is the perspective, and how do you move forward. I think one key aspect that when we look at these sort of leadership development programs is people say, what is leadership? I mean, do we really only look at heads of organizations, of chiefs as leaders for it? What is leadership? How do we understand it? I think what is important for us to understand is that leadership is a very important and critical aspect of your whole journey. And leadership qualities come in right at the beginning of one's journey. In fact, leadership qualities can be seen in people, or you do have to project them or put them out even when we are students in, school and in college and in our research. And then as we move into our positions in organizations that we take on. So what really is that leadership quality? We many times check on that and we ask about it is, and who better than General Parihar will know that. And General Parihar, incidentally, I myself am from a defense family. My grandfather was in the medical corps of the army. My father was also in the defense. So I have a lot of defense learning in me, and a lot of it comes out in my talks. But you know that there is that officer-like quality that has been talked about. That officer-like quality that you talk about is actually the leader in the making. Those OLQs that we talk about are actually the leader in the making. And that is instilled very early into everyone. And in fact, leadership, as I said, is something that my one key aspect on it is, first and foremost, is to have self-confidence in yourself. And that inner confidence and belief in yourself is what really helps leaders to move forward. And I think that is probably the key principle with which we look at leadership as it moves on. In fact, the leaders, as I always say, there is, when we start our education, in school, we learn the alphabets, and that's really what helps us to build our entire study and to move forward. But there is a very basic principle of an ABCD that I feel that a leader has to take on. And one is, of course, every leader must very clearly have a very, very strong ambition. And not over-ambition, remember that. And there is a distinct difference between ambition and over-ambition. But the ambition which gels and aligns with the larger vision, mandate of the organization that you represent. And as I said, this starts straight from school. In school, you're looking at what your school's activities are, and your ambition is, how do I fulfill that? How do I take it forward? And for that, the B is, you must have belief in yourself. Unless you have belief in yourself that you can do it, you will not be able to lead those teams or take it ahead. And for that, there has to be clearly a commitment, 100%. We always say, give your 100% to it. Anything less than 100% is not acceptable. Because if you do not give your 100%, you're not going to be able, because you have to lead by example. And that example will only happen when you put in your 100%. And as you move forward at whatever level, and every leader would face it in his or her growth trajectory as they move on, there are, as they say, successes and not successful. I never use the word failure because nothing is a failure as per my understanding. Everything gives you an understanding of how you can go back and make it better. So something that is successful, something that's not successful. But your determination, and that's the D, should be there, that you have to succeed. You have to move on. And there is a very clear message that every leader would want to have for that. And I think that's really, nothing is impossible. And I do recall, and this nothing is impossible is not really a phrase that I have been saying it. This is something I learned as a child, and my father used to say that to me. Nothing is impossible. And that stuck on to me somewhat. And clearly nothing is impossible. Because it's not impossible because you find a way in which you can come out with a solution and take it ahead. And when Professor Gupta was saying right now, and thank you, Professor Gupta, for your kind words, that even if it's a not a very alive organization, there is some way that you can give it a push to make it alive in 3 months. I think that's because you have to have a determination inside that nothing is impossible. You need to obviously put all the wherewithal around it to get it done. And that's how you will identify to take it ahead. And that's what actually helps you to move ahead and succeed. In fact, these days, as I was saying, leadership is something that we start looking at very early on, and all of us did it when we were in school. You know, we have a school monitor, we have a head girl, a head boy. What are those little positions that we give them? These are all leadership positions. How do teachers, and we would all feel very happy, and I still recall that when I became the house captain and that badge was put on to me here, that was the happiest day of my life. Why? Because I got a recognition of being a little different, or maybe or even when the class monitor gave you. So what did we do? We recognized forthcoming leaders and said, this one probably has the qualities to be able to work with colleagues, to be able to deliver what the school wanted us to do. That is the beginning of bringing in leadership qualities. And most importantly, our seniors, what did they do? They gave us those incentives, they gave us those motivation to be able to move forward. In fact, I can share with you, I was very surprised. Things have changed. I'm talking about 40, 50 years back when we were small children, but now things have changed so much. My nephew's son, my grandson, he became the head boy of a junior school. That's the 5th. And suddenly, this is the defense, the Navy public school. And suddenly on the Times of India, they had put out a whole article, and they said, these are our future leaders. The teachers met with the council of students. So you see what they're doing? They're trying to instill that leadership quality into the students, even in class 5. That is really what we call leadership moving forward. But how can that leadership quality then stay with you as you move on? How do you get accustomed to it? How do you make sure that this is not an exception, becomes a part of your behavior, a part of your attitude, and it doesn't have to be taught to you. It comes to you automatically. I think first and foremost is, as I said, you must really have a large ambition which is well aligned to the organizational mission or the organization you are associated with. And that gives you then the confidence of saying, okay, this is the mission that we have to achieve, this is the mission that we have to succeed with, and this is really that whole vision with which my team, my colleagues have to all work with me. So I have to identify the right people, I have to identify the right tasks, I have to build those teams. Also, have complete ownership for that vision, for that larger mission and mandate that we then collectively take forward to achieve. So what really is that leadership that we are talking about? Is that with your belief in yourself. You instill that level of confidence in your team members. You identify the right team to work along with you and say, okay, we now agree collectively to be able to meet those goals and targets that we have to meet. You also must remember one thing, and this can only happen when your entire mind is focused on what you have to achieve. And General Parihar, you will call, I still remember reading a phrase in the Indian Military Academy, Dehradun. I may get the exact words wrong, but it stays with me always, is where they have clearly said, it's the country first, the organization next, and self last. I mean, as I said, the words may be wrong, but that is what the message is there. And that is something which every leader has to believe in. Self always has to be last. It's your organization and your country which needs you and your demand much more. The moment you remove these vested interests out of your path or your, that you are moving ahead with, you will see that you will be able to then have such a clear vision and a clear path on which you have to move ahead. Once you do this and you have this clear path through which you have to move ahead, you have the belief in yourself, you have the determination that you have to move ahead with this. I think it's important that we follow very clearly the principles of the 5 P's, as I say. You must have clarity of that idea which you have to take ahead. You must have confidence in the ability. Leaders have to take a lot of risk, remember that. Everything is not smooth sailing. There are challenges that you have to face, and that point, the decision that you are taking has huge implications and repercussions. But your conviction is that I have to accomplish it. I have to deliver with commitment. So if you have clarity in your mind, you'll be able to move forward. Now, what really then are those key characteristics which help you to do that? One is, most importantly, if you have to be a good leader, you have to inculcate that leadership quality in your teams or the people who are working with you. You have to build very strong team, and that's probably the most important aspect of it, because no leader can work just by himself or herself. It has to be a team that supports you to move ahead. I mean, if you don't have teams, if you don't have people who work along with you, who are you leading? You just can't lead yourself in isolation. So you have to lead people, and you have to lead with affection, with commitment, with being assertive, but yet making sure that you've been able to deliver. Mahatma Gandhi had a very good saying which I always recall, and he had said, a sign of a good leader is not how many followers you have, but how many leaders you've been able to create. When you're in a leadership position, you'll have lots and lots of followers. Because that's how things are made, so everyone will follow the leader. That's a general task, because that's how it moves forward. But you have to see how many leaders are you creating. And I think that is crucial, and in my understanding, the most important, performance measurement indicator for yourself. After all, who's going to judge you? The world will judge you, your organization will judge you, everybody will. But first and foremost, you'll judge yourself. And how are you going to judge yourself to say, where am I today as a leader? Have I actually been able to take this forward? So that you have to see how strong are the teams that you have built along with you. So while you may be a very good visionary, and as I said, have a 360-degree perspective of what you're doing, for which sky is definitely not the limit. Nothing is impossible, you've already said. You have belief in yourself. But have you been able to accomplish this? Now, with all this wonderful vision that you have, your ambition to be able to take this forward, unless and until you have a strong team with you, And most importantly, your team has to believe in you. And once they believe in you, it's your responsibility to make sure that they believe in themselves. Because if they're not going to believe in themselves, then probably they're only blindly going to follow the leader. So that is what you have to do. Give them, it's totally issue about empowering them. Giving them that understanding as a leader so that yes, you can do it. And how do you do that? You need to delegate responsibilities. You know, one reason why many times we find people, and all of you are, you know, heads of departments or organizations or universities or colleges. One thing which is very difficult for all of us is time. We all know that we have pressures on time. Many times you'll say 24 hours is falling short, we need 48 hours, we need 72 hours. Even if we change the biological clock, it's going to happen. Yes, pressures on time are there. But I think to a great extent, a leader has to be very efficient in time management. How does the time management happen? The time management happens if you know how to delegate. Delegate doesn't mean just pushing the job from you to another person and then sitting with your hands together and saying, I've given it to so-and-so and they're going to accomplish it. No. Delegating responsibility is empowering your team. Finally, the responsibility stays yours. We have seen all the good leaders would always delegate responsibilities and build very strong teams. When people who do not build teams, and they sometimes, you know, will speak to you or say, I have an awful set of team players with me. They just don't work. They just don't deliver. It's a reflection on the leader. Yes, I do accept that there are people you don't have 100% people who work. But many a times there is an insecurity level where you are not ready to delegate responsibility. Remember one thing, no one is indispensable. The moment you move out of that leadership position, somebody else will take it. And somebody should take it. No organization ever collapses because a leader has moved out. So why don't you just help build those teams who are ready to move in? Where we totally lack in our organizations is succession planning. We don't do succession planning. And why don't we do succession planning? Because as a leader, we're not being able to identify the right people who are going to be the second and the third levels to take this on. And that comes from high levels of insecurity. So goes back to the point that I made, that have belief in yourself. And if you have belief in yourself, you will be able to build this team that we are talking about. And once you build that, you'll be able to delegate responsibilities, you'll be able to be a leader. Now, when you build teams, when you delegate responsibilities, 100% task will not be the way you wanted to do it. Sometimes the speed of the task will become slow. Sometimes the task itself may not succeed in the manner it is. But that was not just because it's a delegated responsibility. That's a collective effort of the team. And as I said, never take anything as a failure. Nothing is a failure in the true sense. It's something which has not been successful. It's a step in that ladder which you're not being able to cross. It's an obstacle race. You need to just step back and say, how do I overcome this? What are the solutions for this? And every problem has a solution. We need to find that solution as we move on. Now, having said this, generally what happens is every individual, every organization is used to a particular path in which we are moving. When we suddenly have situations where we have to either handle it in a different manner or handle a crisis, we need to look at different ways. You need to You need to move your teams. You need to move people into other positions. That becomes very difficult for every leader. Because we are totally resistant to change. Nobody wants to move out of their comfort zone. And I think that makes it very, very difficult for us. You know, when you are head organization, the worst task is when you have to bring in changes in the organizational structure and you have to reposition officers from one division to the other. You can't please everybody, but you can't always have an appeasement strategy for that. You have to do what is in the interest of the organization. And that interest of the organization, as I said right in the beginning, comes before anything else. And that organizational interest is where you will have to move people. But if you are convinced that that is in the interest of the organization, it will not take you long to convince the team that this is in his or her own interest as you move on. And it will help you to take it forward. Also remember one thing. Everyone says you have to be a hard taskmaster. I totally agree, and Professor Gupta will know that. Most of my officers would say that to me. She was a hard taskmaster. Whatever task given, you would monitor it as carefully as you can. But a hard taskmaster does not mean a hard-hearted person. There has to be empathy along with it. You have to treat humans as humans. And once you have that in your mind, you can definitely, there's a lot that goes in communication. And one thing that a leader should always do is continue communications. Never ever at any point of your career, close communication. Be open to receiving inputs, as I said, and then also, you're always a student as you move on. I still recall that while I was there as the secretary of the department, one of my young women officers came to me and she said, I want to take voluntary retirement. I said, you're too young in your career now. You don't even have voluntary retirement. You've not even completed 20 years. Why do you want to leave? She says, because I cannot manage my house and my office. And I said, okay, you have a childcare leave, you have other responsibilities, we can give you take a 1 year leave, we'll give you different job, positions that you can do that, but come back, think about it. She took 6 months leave, came back, and then she took 1 year. I superannuated at that time, and just the other day I met her. I wanted to let her know that she's continuing in the office and she's already got her promotion and she's handling it very well. So you see how important it is to have empathy. I think what I would just like to say is, remember one thing, that as a leader, you must communicate. Once you communicate and you allow that communication to be a two-way process, you will yourself see that what is it that you can move forward. I'll want to close very soon. I can see that we've already crossed. You must be having the next speaker coming on, Professor Gupta. But since you mentioned COVID, I would definitely like to say that COVID was a unique chance it was a calamity for everyone, but a unique opportunity also for us to not only see how we are well prepared for these situations, but a crisis which, in the position that I was obviously a challenge for anyone at that leadership position to overcome. And believe me, it gave so much of a learning on how these things need to be handled. Each aspect or every day, every moment was a new learning in that management of COVID. And yes, I'm pleased that I got the opportunity to serve at that point of time. And also we could collectively as a team deliver the solution that you all saw. Believe me, COVID management was impossible if it was not done, and the whole of government approach actually helped us. That's really where you see from the top leadership, it came down to there, and we see this as a test case where you want to see how you can deliver. And that, in fact, is the key aspect of it, that you have to now help your people to move from where they are, because they're all very comfortably sitting there, to move into positions where they have to deliver under crisis, and that's what we did at COVID time. So there are many messages that we have from our journey, many messages that all of us and each of you would have had. Professor Gupta and General Panyar, I can go on for hours and hours and hours. The 35 years of experience in the government, 35 years of career, so much, but I know we need to stop here, but I'll stop by just saying one thing. To be a leader, lead by example. And that example is, there is only one key mantra for success, and that is hard work, and much, much harder work. And remember one thing, a leader is successful if a leader always remembers one thing, that throughout their journey, they are always a student. And if it is that learning that you imbibe, never ever feel in your career that you've learned it all. Never learnt it. Only then it gives you that feeling that yes, I can move, because then you're open to hearing your team and taking it ahead. So I'll stop here and wish you all good luck. I'm sure there's been a lot of excellent engagement you've had in this workshop and will continue to do so. You have all excellent people sitting here. You have people like Professor Sareen who are behind it, leading it, Dr. Kapil, Professor Gupta, and all. So good luck to you and all the best for your workshop. Thank you so much. I'll stop, Professor Gupta.
Thank you, ma'am. It's a wonderful journey you have, and still you are going on. It's every day, every second we learn. The first learning starts from your mother. Mother is the leadership, the icon of the leadership. She hold your finger and start walking, and gradually you are keep on reaching to the heights what every one of us is getting. The true leader is always who leads from the front, who is able to face the challenges and take everybody along. And we have rightly so. We are proud of our association with you, ma'am, and your wonderful lecture. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Pariyar. And thank you, madam. Just 2-3 points I will quickly say. One is on your experience of when you got captain of the house and you still remember. And I was reading an article, the importance, and this is not article, there's a book, importance of awards in one's life and career. Some people think that ये तो बहुत ही बेकार award है, ये society का award है, but how much important it has. In 79, I got the first award when I finished my MD, went to Belgaum to present a paper, and that was just a simple poster presentation award of 500 rupees at that time. And my professor, guide, Dr. KP Bhargav, Balram's father, sent me a telegram which I got the next day that he gives me 300 rupees as a personal incentive. I still remember that was my biggest award of my life. First award, Belgaum, chota place, but how much motivation you get, but that is one thing. Second thing I will like to convey to house, because we have been talking about the leaders are those who create leaders. So here is the lady who created, I would say, the maximum leaders in terms of a startup entrepreneurs. They are now the leaders. So that is the second thing. And as most of you know, the COVID journey I think has also created a lot of leaders. And I was fortunate to be associated with the ICMR, Dr. Balram Bhargav and Madam, for management of COVID crisis and different. And in no time we created, in fact, under her leadership, there are few organizations, and I was chairing BIPAL, which is organization which was ready for manufacturing large quantity of desired vaccine. But that was not required much later but that is how the management leadership, the manufacturing leadership, and we became the leader global leader. We established global leader for COVID management. So that is the leader. And lastly, I would say sometimes we must call ourselves Rama Bhakta. See, what is the quality of Ram? What is the Hanuman, if I always say? Hanumanji was a monkey, bandar, simple bandar. But he was to be told that you have this much Shakti. तो जब रामचंद्र जी ने उनको बताया कि हे हनुमान तुम्हारे में इतनी शक्ति है कि तुम एक छोटे से पौधे के नहीं तुम पहाड़ी उठा के ला सकते हो 7 समुद्र पार जाके, देन ही रियलाइज हिज स्ट्रेंथ, और फिर वो जाके ऐसे उठा के ले आए जैसे कि बच्चों का खेल है. सो आई थिंक लीडर इज सच who make a person realize his strength. So that was the first, I think, leadership quality. Thank you very much, madam. It was a great pleasure and honor to hear you, particularly on Women's Day.